Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new here. Okay, so the more that I read Clarice Lispector, the more that I'm convinced that she's some kind of incarnate godhead or a witch. Benjamin Moser, who wrote the biography on Clarice, it's called Why This World. I just ordered it, I'm so excited to read it. He mentions a warning from a friend while researching her work. His friend, who I believe was Jose Costello, said, "Be careful with Clarice. It's not literature, it's witchcraft." Clarice Lispector was a Brazilian novelist, though born in Ukraine, and a sorceress with words. Her work is often described as existential, metaphysical, dealing with core issues of what it is to be human or not. She asks all of the forbidden questions. What is existence comprised of? Is there something greater? Can we call it a heaven? Is it nothing? Clarice is the Empress of the Void, as some people like to call her. If anyone writes like somebody coming out of a black hole, it's definitely her. Words cannot suffice to describe her. She's often, during like book reviews and stuff, it's often very difficult to describe what the actual books are about. And the books are really just these lengthy inner monologues and even a dialogue of somebody with themselves. That's at least the premise of the book that I'm currently reading right now. It's called A Breath of Life, which I will be referencing quite a bit in this video. Now, I'm not here to give you a book review because I haven't even finished the book. That's not the point. What I'd like to do is highlight a core theme that exists within Clarice's work, and its contribution to what I would like to call self-seduction. All right, so here it is. Clarice regularly subjects her main characters to the stripping of everything that makes them human, most commonly their identity. She tediously dissolves every boundary that we have. Our distinctions, our words, our categorizations, our labels, our intelligence, our conscientiousness, the contemplation that's a part of that. Part of the witchcraft is that she's able to do this with words, through questions, through categorization. In A Breath of Life, the main character is really a single being, I guess you could say, split into two. The author and then the incarnation of Angela. The author creates Angela, which is a detached persona, I guess, that allows the author to better understand themselves. Now, what does that have to do with self-seduction? Etymologically, to seduce is to lead astray. The word seduce comes from the Latin word seducere. It's a combination of the prefix se, meaning oneself, and the suffix ducere, which means to lead away. While seduction is usually done by someone else unto you, self-seduction is about leading yourself astray. And I've said quite a bit about that. I have a whole playlist on self-seduction. I thought I was done until I read Clarice. Now I'm certain that all that other stuff I was talking about was preliminary, if not entirely useless. The newest goal, maybe, because it's kind of scary, is how to lead your conscious mind astray. The conscious mind being this self, this person, this ego, an individual filled with distinctions and self-awareness. How to lead her astray so that something greater can take host. What would that greater thing be? The soul, baby. That platonic, perfected, higher version of you that's just waiting to come forth. And what does that do for us? Something great. Or perhaps something that exists beyond good and bad. Let's find out. Now, one of the most common ways to self-seduce, I guess you could say, is to sleep. That's the ultimate way to seduce yourself, right? To sedate yourself. When you dream, your conscious mind is not being conscious and getting in the way, and your soul can move about freely, which is why I want to talk about today's sponsor, Manta Sleep. Now, before you think that this is just some sponsorship that I'm doing just for money, I have been wearing Manta masks for years, actually. I received the OG sleep mask from Manta Sleep as a gift, and since then I have upgraded to this lovely 100% silk mask. The silk helps with anti-aging, bags under your eyes. Of course, silk is a high-quality natural fabric. It's breathable, and of course, the color, the silk, the way that they look. This is my choice aesthetically among their selection. Now, you may ask, what is the difference between Manta and other sleep masks? A big difference. It's gonna be these guys right here, these cups. These cups offer total blackout, which in modern life is rare. Lots of light pollution, okay? And total darkness is needed for you to be able to release an adequate amount of melatonin, which allows you to fall asleep quicker and extends the depth and length of your sleep. These are essential for anybody that travels and for those of us that like our afternoon siestas. You put one of these bad boys on and you are out like a light. You dream away. You roam far, far away. They are very comfortable. Even whenever you're laying on your side, you would think that these cups would get in your way. They're super soft. They do not. It's like with anything, if you don't wear a mask, yeah, they'll take some like getting used to, like a night or something, so you can just get comfortable with them, but it's not uncomfortable. You don't wake up like feeling a pressure on your face. And what's cool is that there's enough room for your eyelashes, even if you have extensions on the inside of the cup. Good sleep is truly a luxury, and it took me way too long to learn that, because it really isn't just about the sleep anymore. When you get older, it's about what you do with the sleep. You got to give yourself time to recuperate, to let your body heal, to let your body be at peace, and to let your soul roam, right? You got to sleep well enough to dream. You got to write down your dreams. If you want to try out one of their masks, use my link in the description and my code HONEY for 10% off your first purchase. This is like the Rolls Royce of sleep masks, okay? I highly suggest you give them a try. I love mine. I have loved both of mine. Look at that color too. Wow, isn't that gorgeous? It's like the color of the abyss. Now, when we dream, however, for many of us, unless you're like astral projecting or something, our agency is very limited, right? We are but a spectator. And that's a good thing. You know, I want to be able to apply my consciousness to things afterward, not in the moment. That's prohibiting the soul from its freedom, from doing the work. And I'll tell you, if you have good intuition, if you know anything about intuition and how important it is, and you are not paying attention to your dreams, then you better start. Intuition, as one of my followers, thank you so much, I can't remember your name right now, led me to this information. Intuition, according to Plato, actually predates logic, because intuition comes from knowledge of the forms. Who would have thought? And of course, the soul resides within the domain of the forms, the divine realm. So get working on that dream journal, honeybee. So allowing yourself to sleep and dream is perhaps one of the most complete forms, I guess, of self-seduction. You allow yourself to fall asleep, you let your soul do the work while you're unconscious, but that's not in the real world, right? You're not awake. What about being able to self-seduce and let yourself go completely while you're awake? Okay, artists and creatives, I'm speaking to you. You know that special trance that we get into? When you're just working and you've been at it for like an hour, maybe an hour and a half, and then you just cease to be a person and it's just about the work. You stop thinking, you stop jamming up those pathways that are permitting something higher to take over and push that work just a little bit further than you did yesterday or the week before that or the month before that. That's a very special, that's a sacred place, isn't it? Literally nothing else exists but what you're doing. Well, now is the ripe time for me to talk about some things that Miss Clarice has written. In A Breath of Life, she describes that feeling, the flow state, through her character, the author, who is a writer. The main thing I want to reach is to surprise myself with what I write, to be assaulted, to tremble before what was never said by me. So there Clarice describes to us the thing that we want to achieve here, right? Self-seduction. To be able to surprise oneself, you have to, while somehow in a waking state, slip into a kind of unconsciousness. Then what precedes is what Clarice calls being assaulted, to witness something that you didn't do. It's creation that feels like it came from somewhere or someone else, but through you, what was never said by me. The someone else, I'd argue, is the soul, that perfect, eternal, immutable, divine form of you. But what is our issue? What's getting in our way? LISPECTOR explains it plain as day. But when I try to think, I get worried about trying to think and nothing comes up. Sometimes my thought is only the whispering of my leaves and branches. But for my best thought, words are not found. She explains further. When I think without any thought, I call that meditation. And it's so profound that I can't quite reach and words disappear. Manifestations. Whenever I do something deliberately, nothing comes out. Therefore, I get distracted almost deliberately. I pretend I don't want something, I end up believing I don't want it, and only then does the thing come. Things happen indirectly. They come sideways. I discovered that I need to not know what I'm thinking. If I become conscious of what I'm thinking, I can no longer think. I can only see myself think. Thought needs to be a feeling. I now know how to think of nothing. It was a conquest. Not thinking means the inexpressible contact with the nothing. The nothing is the beginning of a free availability that we could call grace. Okay, some things to unpack there, especially that last part. So what ends up getting in our way is being conscious of ourselves, to think about thinking. And if you're too conscious, your soul cannot bring you into the flow state. When you think too much, you can't think. The flow state, I would argue, just like experiencing something beautiful, is being able to come into contact or communion with the forms, with the eternal, divine, and perfect. In the flow state, the soul takes over. Infinite knowledge, an uninterrupted, pure energy circuit where miracles, epiphanies, and peace surface effortlessly. This communion and residual flow state can happen in intellectual debates with people, when we make love with somebody, when we're researching something that interests us, when we look at something beautiful, like I said before. Let me paint you, just to solidify that you know what I'm talking about. Let me give you an image. Let me paint you a picture. Let me show you a clip from Aquamarine. It doesn't matter that the movie is Aquamarine. It just matters that this one scene is a good visual representation of what I'm talking about. Remember when they're sitting in Haley's room and Aquamarine removes the harsh light from the top of the bowl and the goldfish comes out of hiding? Well, the harsh light is our individuality, our identity, all that keeps us tied to the material world. And the goldfish is your soul, the goldfish. Perfect, immutable, and complete, coming out of hiding as soon as you remove the light. Now, to directly address the last part of what Clarice said, not thinking means the inexpressible contact with the nothing. The nothing is the beginning of a free availability that we could call grace. To come into contact with nothing, to allow yourself to stop being conscious, to lead yourself astray, means to strip yourself of what it is to be human, to be conscious of your human body, of your identity, of who you are. Once you forget about your place in the world and all the things that you could compare yourself to, you become nothing. You're an empty vessel. And it's only through giving yourself up, giving up the I and the me, that you may be aggregated into the nothingness. That is what nothingness asks of you. And the nothingness is a place of constant grace. And grace, I'm sure you can all understand, is just pure flow state all the time. It's difficult because the boundaries that we create to give our lives meaning are also the things that cut off that circulation of grace. That's why fluidity is almost impossible as a constant in this human world. We have too much keeping ourselves bound. It's everything that we are, all the people we love. And so we struggle, we trudge through things, we erect mazes around ourselves. What Clarice was after was the full embodiment of the nothing, of the unknown, pure uninterrupted being. The quality of missability, this missability, not this missability. Continuity of ecstasy. Except I don't think this is a ecstasy at all. I don't think it feels probably like anything. My all-time favorite book by Clarice is The Passion According to G.H. And it gets better with every read. When you read Clarice, you read like more than one book by her, you start to develop a kind of literacy, because Clarice doesn't write like anybody else. And you gotta she doesn't use words and their definitions and their connotations like anybody else does. And you can translate, decode what she's saying more and more each time. It's really rewarding. But I love that book so much because it deals intimately with the conflict that a human being has when they realize that they can give it all up. What is it to relinquish who you are as a human being, to release all of those earthly ties? Clarice makes it abundantly clear just how horrifying the prospect of letting yourself go can be, and how it's even more horrifying that once you do let yourself go, you no longer care. It's a story of a woman who becomes aware of a possibility, and she can never not be aware of it again. And to not pursue the possibility would forever render her a coward. It is 220 pages of this main character wrestling with herself. Can she do this? Can GH become nothing? Can GH seduce herself into a state of supreme grace, unity with all things? Could any of us do that? Could I do that? I don't know. I don't think so. I love the material world and definition and words and stuff way too much. Maybe I'm immature. Maybe I can't transcend. Maybe I'm not enlightened or whatever the hell, but I I kind of like these things down here in the physical world. Could it possibly be my goal someday? Could it be yours to become nothing? I mean, all I do is talk about individuality on this channel. This level of self-seduction is like the antithesis of everything else that I preach on here. This level of self-seduction is not for everybody. It's a kind of death. To stop trying to be and just be. To sacrifice at some altar all that you have worked so hard to accomplish through the investigation and mining of yourself. And then when you do, then some radiance channels through you ceaselessly and you're just good? Or you don't care if you're good or not? Is it maybe that we'll come to this realization that all we had hoped for in our pursuits of knowledge and identity are just modest attempts at something that the soul already has, and therefore something that we already have but just maybe can't access it? Something to consider. Angela thinks that the state of grace, or of life, lies in making the most of oneself in the external world. She even strives to conquer God, making him the external world. But the one who lives in a state of grace, not permanently but with great frequency, is me. I managed this through a disinterest in the world. I live in emptiness that is also called fullness. Angela writes the way she lives, projecting herself. But I am already free. I write for nothing. I clear a path for myself. I live without models. I write without models. Being free is what gives me that responsibility.